Okay, so this week I tried 3 different Levain cookie recipes, and let me tell you, it's a great way to get a massive stomachache. If you're interested in getting a stomachache yourself, go ahead and do this because that's what ended up happening to me. So basically, the Levain cookies, if you've never seen them, they're probably like one of the most popular cookies now on the internet. They're from a New York City bakery. They're just these really big, thick chocolate walnut cookies, and people try to recreate them all the time. So I thought I would recreate 3 recreation cookies and see if they're good. Little side note, I have not actually tried Levain's cookies, so take that as you will, but I think we can judge them based off appearance and just based off taste in general, so why the heck not? Let's give it a go. Let's go over the original cookie just in case you're not sure. I'll put in some pics to get a feel for what we're going for here. So Levain.com says, our signature chocolate chip walnut cookie is crispy on the outside with a satisfyingly thick and gooey center. Every bite is packed with semi-sweet chocolate chips and chunks of walnut. So this is like a very big, underbaked, thick cookie. So if you're into like thin, crispy cookies, it's not the recipe for you. If you clicked on this, you probably already know what Levain cookies are, I'm assuming. Let's get into it, and let me tell you the 3 different recipes we're going over today. So the first one is Cupcake Gemma, which I recently just tried one of her other New York City inspired cookies, so go check that out if you want. The second one is a recipe from Delish by June. And then Joshua Weissman recently just came out with a recipe. I also did one of his cookie recipes before on my channel if you want to see how that went. So we're going to try these 3 different recipes, compare the entire process and compare the results, and we'll see which one we like the best. So I'm kind of just going to break down all the ingredients in them and the differences, and also the process in which the cookies are made and how it compares from cookie to cookie, and then the final results, which is probably going to be the best part. So let's get started trying out these things. Okay, so for Cupcake Gemma and Delish, they both kind of start with a similar process, while Joshua's is a little different. So first, let's talk about Cupcake Gemma and Delish's. So both of these start with gently breaking up cold butter. You don't want to whip it like you normally would with butter and make it really soft and airy. You're just kind of breaking it up. And then you go ahead and add in the brown and white sugar. And this whole time, both recipes make it very clear not to overmix. On the other hand, Joshua follows kind of a more standard recipe procedure when making cookies, and he actually melts his butter, which was totally different from the other 2. And then he mixes it into the 2 different sugars. So all 3 of them use brown and white sugar. But I did mess up on Joshua's. I ended up putting in the eggs before the butter, which you're supposed to do the other way around. I would have restarted, but everything seemed to be going okay, and we'll just keep that in mind when we judge the cookies at the end, that I did kind of mess his up a little, but I didn't want to waste what I had started, and yeah, so just so you know. So we'll get back to his recipe in a second. After mixing the sugars and the butter, Cupcake Gemma and June from Delish then add in the chocolate and the walnuts. Now, Cupcake Gemma's and Delish's both use chocolate chips, while Joshua uses chopped chocolate. Cupcake Gemma's uses milk chocolate, while the other 2 use dark chocolate. Like we read earlier on Levain's website, they actually use semi-sweet, so I found that interesting that none of these recipes use semi-sweet. Okay, so on to the walnuts. How do these walnuts vary? Cupcake Gemma is the only one who removes the skins. They show how to remove the skins, which is very easy because all 3 of these recipes want them slightly toasted. So I just put them in the oven at like 400 degrees for like 5 to 7 minutes. And for Cupcake Gemmas, they just tell you to put it into like a cloth or something. So I just used, this is the only cloth I had, okay? So I put it into this cloth and rubbed it together, and it actually did a really nice job of getting the skins off. I didn't know this trick, so it was kind of a useful tip to learn. But the other 2, I believe, just left the skins on from what I could tell. So Cupcake Gemmas were naked, the other 2 were not. Back to Cupcake Gemma and Delish's recipe. So then you go ahead and just gently mix in the walnuts and the chocolate, and then you add in the dry ingredients. Now, Cupcake Gemma is the only one who uses only all-purpose flour and self-rising flour. They use a mixture of, but it's still regular flour, while Josh and Delish's recipe use a mix of cake flour and all-purpose flour, which I love cake flour. I don't know why, but it's just so light and airy, and I just love cake flour. So I was happy to use cake flour in these recipes. And for Josh's recipe, he actually adds in cornstarch, which the other 2 do not. And his has the least amount of baking soda and baking powder. He only uses baking soda. The other 2 use more of these ingredients than this one. So that was interesting. Now, for Cupcake Gemma and Delish, when you add in the powder, it kind of makes it into like a crumbly, powdery mixture, which is good. That's how they want it in the videos. It's a little different than when you make normal cookies, but that's how these recipes go. And then you use some eggs to bind it all together. And basically you just mix in the eggs until it kind of starts to clump together into a dough. And again, you're careful not to overmix. But let's go back to Joshua. We didn't forget about you. Like I said, his recipe kind of follows more of the standard procedure of making a cookie. So he does the eggs, the butter, and sugar. We went over that part. And then he adds in his dry ingredients that are already mixed together like the other ones into the wet. Then the last thing he does is add in the chocolate and the walnuts. And interestingly enough, his recipe by far uses the most eggs, 5 eggs in total, not the whole egg. 3 of them are just the yolks, but it still needs 5 eggs. The other 2 just use 2 lightly beaten eggs before you add them in. Now, all 3 doughs require chilling. So to chill them, we need to first make them into balls. So Delish and Joshua both want about 6-ounce balls, which I did my best to do without a scale. It was actually a lot easier to figure out Delish's because June from Delish said that it would make about 8, so I was able to make 8. While Josh, I couldn't find, or I didn't see anywhere about how many cookies his recipe made, so it was a little more difficult to do the 6 ounces, so I just kind of matched it to the size of the ones from June from Delish's recipe. Joshua kept his balls much more uniform. He used a scoop, while Delish's kind of just wanted you to clump it together, which is like Cupcake Gemma. She wants kind of the same thing. We're just kind of making a ball, but you're not really shaping it into like a nice ball. So Joshua's balls are a little less uneven. They're very uniform. And Cupcake Gemma used the smallest amount. She said hers should be at 125 grams, which apparently is 4.5 ounces according to my internet research, which I don't know if it's reliable or not. And that made about 12 cookies. So Josh says to put his in the fridge for 45 minutes, while the other 2 say to put it in the freezer for at least 90 minutes. All of these recipes recommend leaving them in longer if you can, but those are like the minimum times. Well, hold up. Well, Josh actually doesn't scoop them into balls. He puts them right into the fridge first for 45 minutes and then puts them into balls and says you should put them in the fridge for like another 20 to 25 minutes. So those are, I guess his are a little different. He doesn't put his into balls right away. Okay, time to bake these frickin' cookies. Who's ready? Joshua's cookies cook at the highest temperature, and that is 425 degrees for 10 to 13 minutes. Okay, so some of these cookies kind of ended up being a little disastrous. You can see that they were kind of burning and spilling out on the bottom, while some of them turned out pretty good looking. And I thought maybe it was because of how I mixed the ingredients wrong, but now I'm kind of thinking it's because I might have cut the chocolate in too big of shards, which normally I cut them in too small of shards, so I kind of messed it up here. And I think that's why this happened, because when I looked at the bottom, it kind of just looked like chocolate had like melted the dough out. So I think that was my bad. June from Delish requires them to cook at 375 for 26 minutes with a double pan. She strongly recommends a double pan, which I don't have a double pan. So for my first batch, I tried putting like this smaller pan that I have underneath it so it wasn't directly touching the oven. But then I was like getting nervous because my pan like warps. I didn't want it like flying around and burning. So I only did that for about half the time, and then the rest of them I just cooked. Sorry, June. But I just cooked them right on the oven rack. And mine actually didn't really burn on the bottom at all, so it probably just kind of depends on your oven, because that's why she recommends the tip. It's so that the bottoms don't burn while you're cooking them. And Cupcake Gemma also wanted the temperature to be 375-ish, slightly different I think from like Celsius. It was something weird, but it was around that, I believe, for 17 minutes. And they recommend heating the pan in the oven while you're heating it up to also help with the browned bottoms, which I did. And I had no issues with these 2 recipes. They all, none of them spread. They all stayed solid and came off the pan really nicely. I let all 3 of these recipes rest on the pan for 10 minutes before trying to remove them, because these recipes make big old cookies. They're kind of underbaked because you don't want to overbake them, so you gotta let them rest a little. So by this point, I had a ton of giant frickin' cookies, which I still have a lot left. It's very hard to resist these things. Let's break these cookies down in terms of a few different qualities, and then we can try to pick one winner overall. Now, before we get into this, of course, it's very likely that I didn't make these recipes exactly perfect, and I've only made them one time, so of course we're just having fun here. We're just trying the recipes, but this doesn't mean sure that one cookie is better than the other, blah blah blah, you know what I'm saying, right? Well, with that being said, let's get into the cookies. So in terms of overall look, I'm gonna go ahead and say here that I think Delish is the winner. These ones turn out the biggest, and they kind of have that like crumbly brown shape on top, and they just have the look. They've done the look of the New York City cookie. The only thing that I want to say though is that Josh's cookies, I think maybe even the chocolate could have affected mine, because mine kind of looked different than his. His looked a little poofier and like less chocolate shards on top, while mine looked very chocolatey on top and maybe made them spread more. So I just wanted to say that. And then Cupcake Gemmas looked really good, but they just weren't as big as the Levain ones, but they did have very similar look. But I think Delish is the overall winner for the look category. A crucial part of the Levain cookie is the underbakedness and the doughiness in the center. And I think for this one, I would say Josh's was the winner. Delish was a close second. Both cookies had a nice crispy outside and then a nice underbaked inside. Cupcake Gemma's were very moist, but not totally underbaked. Now let's go with flavor for the last category. Which one tasted best? Which is basically totally unfair because they all tasted super good. I can't really pick a real winner overall for that because, like I said, I've never even tried Levain cookies, but I hate to be the person who makes a winner in every category. It seemed like fair. But I want to say Cupcake Gemma's. I just love the taste of Cupcake Gemma's cookies. There's just something about it that one to me like really stood out as tasting the best. I could not stop eating that one. I think the winner, the overall winner, is the Delish cookie, which I was surprised by. But this one, I just think it was very easy for it to come out correctly, and it came out so big and poofy and looks just like those thick cookies with like the huge moist interior. Delish nailed it in that sense. I mean, like I said, all three of these recipes were really good, so it's kind of hard to pick a winner. This whole experiment was pretty difficult to recreate just because it took so many ingredients, and like I don't have a job right now, so I don't want to be spending like, you know, butter, chocolate, all that stuff kind of adds up. So I used a ton of ingredients in making these three recipes because although it doesn't make many cookies, they're big ass cookies, you know? Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it was interesting. I find it interesting kind of comparing the different recipes and seeing the different ingredients they had. I think this was a very fun and tasty experiment to see and try out these different Levain cookie recipes. You can't go wrong with any one of them, honestly. Okay, so that's it. That's all there is for this video. I think that if you've tried one of these recipes or you have a recommendation for your favorite Levain copycat recipe, let me know. I would love to try another one, even though I think I could use a break right now from big chocolate chip cookies, which I never thought I would say. Anyway, I hope you have an awesome day. I'll catch you later. Bye.